Yes, we're back, guys. Today, Dubai Soul Oasis number 2. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
We've got some amazing things to talk about, and we've got a huge topic today. It's all about relationships, which I'll get back to in a second. But I wanted to share with you, we've got a different setup today, not in a studio because we're spread over the world. Michael is in the UK, Rahul and Shweta are here in Dubai with us. Dubai is scorching hot at the moment, so we're doing it out of the comforts of our locations, our homes.
Yeah.
And something exciting today is that we have Shweta joining us. So Shweta, please introduce us to everybody.
Okay, well, hi guys. Thank you firstly for having me on this podcast. It's really amazing to be talking to great minds here. For those of you that don't know me, I am a singer, a professional singer. Of course, since my last hit, now people start calling me the voice of Jalebi Baby, but I'm a lot more than that. I have sang, for a lot of professional projects, a few Bollywood and a few regional projects in India. And I'm really excited to be here today and looking forward to a very, intense discussion on relationships.
Oh, intense.
Welcome. We're
Awesome.
excited to have you.
Welcome.
Great. So should we kick it off? I think today we are talking about relationship, and I think what would be kind of cool is that maybe we define to kick it off, let's define what relationship is. And then we can get into sort of each of us in our personal life and professional life, the kind of relationships we have, and we can sort of delve into it in detail as we sort of peel the onion in terms of what it means to be in a relationship or a healthy relationship in every element of our life. So I think relationship for me, and I don't know what it is for you guys, and it's basically anything that happens between two people or two things, the connection that happens between people to people, or people to the environment, or people to a project or a plan or work. So any connection between two entities gives birth to a relationship, right? So I think fundamentally that is how I would define what a relationship is, and I think it varies from each environment, right? It's different when it's a personal relationship. It's different when it's professional. It's different when it's environmental relationships. You have a different with animals, for example, Priscilla, for you. The context can change, but I'm sure the fundamentals are pretty much the same. So I think that's what it is for me. What about you guys?
Michael.
Agree?
So I was thinking about this a lot actually before we even decided the questions. I thought, what is a relationship? It'd be good to define that. And there's a couple of things that came through as I was thinking about it. And one is that we are relational beings. So everything that we experience through this mind that we have is in relation to something else. So,
Correct.
if I look at these two glasses, one is heavier than the other. There's a relationship between them. One is greener than the other, so we're always comparing things and contrasting things. And the other thing that came through is the relationship is the thing that happens in the space between us. So right now we are in relationship, all three of us, four of us even.
4 of us,
And,
yeah.
but it's what's going on between us. That's the relationship. It's not what's happening here or there. There's something magical happening between us, and that's a relationship. And often
True.
we have associations baked into those relationships, and we can talk about that more later. But for me, that's it. It's space. It's what's happening in the space between us.
Right.
Interesting. What about you, ladies? And by the way, Michael, I want to know what you're drinking. That looks quite delicious.
AG1.
All right, nice.
Athletic Greens.
Nice. What do you think, Priscilla? I mean, do you want to add anything to that, or that makes sense?
That makes total sense. I'm very much of energies and the flow of energies, and this is completely connecting us in all levels.
Right.
from low vibrations to super high vibrations. And absolutely, that's all in relation too.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting what Michael you added, because I was just talking about relationship to be between two things or people, and you said that what is one level deeper than that? It's the energy between those two things or the people that actually define the relationship context between those two things. So it's just not two things, but what's happening between the two things, and I think that's kind of interesting to have. Shweta,
Sure.
what about you? What do you think?
So I think just combining all your points together, right? It's in a relationship, it's like an interdependent
Mm,
community, which
yeah.
fosters like a mood of collaboration, and not just collaboration, service uh, to one another. So it was very
Mm,
interesting. I was in California. I would come across, I remember redwood trees quite often.
mm, mm,
Somebody said something very beautifully, where they said that you think that these tall trees, they need very deep roots to survive, but
mm,
the fact is that these roots are very shallow. What
mm,
gives trees resilience is that these roots are spread, widely, and they thrive actually in grooves. Their roots are interweaved. So that's why when there's like strong forces of nature, they're able to stand it together. They're stronger together, they're weaker together. So it's really beautiful when somebody mentioned that example to me about how um, they gave this example of redwood trees, and I thought that uh, made so much sense in how we are in relationships. We look out to one another, and we're very interdependent. And yeah, that's so. I think it's a culmination of all your points. Actually.
mm. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful because a relationship is actually completely non-verbal.
Mm,
Yeah.
So we verbalize it in our relationships, and sometimes the communication is better than other times. But you have, for example, for me, with animals, there's a non-verbal intensity in relationship. But
mm,
then if you have the relationship with your partner, a loved one, even a business partner or friends, then it becomes more, of course, it's the energy, but you're a lot more verbal and communicative about it.
but
Yeah.
sorry, sorry, just quickly jumping into Priscilla, your point, which is so true, because we have all seen that and witnessed that with you, with your animals, your horses and stuff like that. And remember when we all three of us were standing, we could feel that energy between all four of us last time. But I feel when you talk about people relationship or individual relationships, whether it's families, whether it's husband wives or romantic relationships, I kind of have a feeling that people don't communicate enough. I actually feel just the reverse. I think because most of the relationships that I have witnessed which get into trouble are because of lack of communication. Although, to your point, and rightly so, we have the capability to actually contextualize and talk about things with each other. But the question is, do we do that enough? And I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe you guys can share your experiences, but in my experience, I feel people don't. They kind of sort of assume, but they don't do that enough.
So
And very openly.
I'm with you on that. We don't communicate enough, but then the biggest killer
Mm,
meaningful relationship is we don't communicate, but then we expect a lot. It's the
mm,
expectation, you know.
yeah,
And I find that the more you expect, the more you're disappointed.
yeah.
The more you give in, the more it works in your favor.
Mm,
Uh, and it obviously is very difficult to be giving. You know,
mm,
easier said than done, but it's very
mm,
easy to expect. And why am I? What am I? Why am I expecting? Because I feel like a lot of times in relationships we're also looking for validation. We're looking for validation. We're looking for it. It kind of gives us a sense of joy. You know,
sure.
yeah. So go back to your point. I think communication is the biggest killer when you're
Killer.
not and you're assuming that the other
Yeah,
person understands what you want or what's going on in your mind. The reality
sure.
is they're not, and then it leads to a lot of miscommunication. It leads to a lot of doubt. It leads to a lot of fights, and things just go downhill from there.
Michael posted something really, really good this week on Instagram, and it was about what if we would actually express what we mean? So Michael, come on, bring us to that one.
Yeah, I can share that story. But first I want to say there's a great saying in relationships: trade your expectations for appreciation. And I think if you can do that, that goes a long way. You know, instead of expecting things from people, appreciate them for who they are. The good and the bad. You know, that's really the secret. The other thing, going back to that, Shweta, as well, is, you know, there's an exercise that we do in the practice that I'm involved in, and we look at like our role, and we look at the rules that we have in our roles. So all of us, you know, if we're in a relationship, will be in a label. You know, we'll be like, I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend. And with those roles, we'll have certain rules, and we might not even be aware of those rules. You know, so I did this on myself in my role as a father, and I had a lot of rules that I was putting onto myself that I wasn't even aware of. And when I started to realize that, I realized, I actually can't be a great father because I've got all these rules that I can never live up to. It's like impossible. So, like, we have this deep programming and conditioning from our cultures, from our families, from our friends, from ourselves even. And if we're not aware of them, they can really get in the way, you know. And I think there is an opportunity to reprogram yourself in relationship. And I definitely did that. You know, I went through a divorce 6 years ago, and that was horrible. And I just thought I never want to go through something like that again. So I really looked at like, what is my role in relationship, and what are the rules that I want to live by, and what actually does a relationship mean to me? Because what I was finding was, in an intimate relationship, I felt boxed in. I felt like my energy was being squashed. It doesn't have to be like that. It can feel totally expansive and, you know, across all time and space. But I have to consciously decide that it's something that that I had to choose, because I was conditioned to feel something very different in relationship prior to that.
That's kind of interesting, Michael, because what I'm learning from you is that you're saying, so an individual creates these sort of expectations in your mind of certain relationships you have, and then you don't even communicate that expectation to your partner. So what is happening is the partner has no idea, and you're building up. So you're stacking it up in your head, but you're not even talking about it. And all of a sudden, then it's a misunderstanding, because just there's a gap between conversations between two people, and that oftentimes in many relationship, take the relationship down, or makes it difficult to sustain it, I guess.
Yeah, actually,
Right?
you blow up because you think, and then and then things happen where you say that, oh, I thought you knew I'd expect this. You know, you've known me. I assumed that you'd already know. Didn't you realize it from this and this, or from this and this experience? So that, like you said, Rahul, very aptly, that assumptions, which really, uh, unfortunately, it doesn't work out if we end up going that route. If we assume and just think that our partner knows it all, instead just yeah.
Plus, what I also think is what we're not touching yet is the fear of being able to express yourself and wanting to be the authentic self, because of the society, because of the norms, because of the rules. You're scared to speak up, because what is going to be the effect? And that's a very, very bad mix to have with the whole setup. And once you can free yourself from limitations and free yourself of the restrictions of, okay, what if the relationship is gonna fall apart because I want to express myself on this part? And if that means that the other person, if it's business, if it's children, or if it's love, if that person is not going to be able to appreciate your expression and takes you down for that, then you should actually thank them.
Interesting.
Because you're going to end up limiting yourself more and more and more. And what's going to happen is you're going to get very, very unhappy deeply inside, which is going to cause a whole lot of difficulties within a relationship.
So I think along the points of what Priscilla is saying, right? Like, it's interesting because I was reading a book on this, actually, written by a monk, where he said something very interesting. He said he was going through different principles of, maintaining a healthy relationship. And I think one of them that kind of is in tangent with what we're talking about is the maturity. And when he said maturity, he was insisting of, like, what he was saying is we should know when to speak and when to keep quiet, stand up strong and when to adjust and bend down, And the most beautiful thing he said is, like, speak only when your words are better than silence, When your words are going to be better than silence, then your relationship will improve a lot, And it also goes parallelly with silence is golden. Sometimes.
Yes.
Silence is golden, and it can be a killer as well, depending on the relationship.
Exactly, right?
So should we all just keep quiet for the rest of the call?
Yes.
And just feel the energy flow, and then just like that's it.
Michael, what were you were trying to say something, right? Or
because, no, it's interesting.
Okay.
I was listening to something this morning, and it was Benjamin Franklin's 13 rules of character, and one of them is be silent unless it's worth saying something.
Nice.
So I'm going to stay silent for a minute.
Yeah. Nobody talks right now.
I don't think I can do that.
No, but okay. Here's a question for you guys. So Priscilla, you mentioned about fear. We spoke about expectation. We all of us know this, and we are all in some form of relationship in our life, right? And it doesn't have to be a partner or a husband or a wife, but we are in a relationship today with people, work, personal, you name it, nature, and animals for you. Once we know all of this, why do we still make the mistakes? Why do we still not communicate? Why do we still not talk about it? We know it. We are intelligent enough. We just all confess that we do it. Why do we still not know it? We know it's from fear. We know it's expectation. But why do we keep repeating it?
Depends on how far you are in your spiritual journey.
Okay.
And Rahul, you're up there.
No. Michael is flying. We both are flying together. No, but that's a serious question. I don't know, Michael, what's your thought on that? Because, that's something that it's like going to a doctor who tells you, you have this problem, take these medicines and it'll be good. You know you have a problem, but you won't take the medicines and you won't get fit. And why do people do that? I mean, still, each of us, when we go back, we make the same mistakes again and again. Why?
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? My mentor, when I started working with him, I wasn't in an intimate relationship. And he said to me, you need to be in an intimate relationship because that's where you learn more than anything, because that's where the challenges really are. Because, in an intimate relationship, it's like having a mirror up to you, and someone is going to call you out on all your bullshit and you can't run away and you can't escape. So, and it's an endless learning process, it really is. So we will keep getting it wrong and we will keep making mistakes. And, interestingly, where I'm getting to with this is like the concept of non-duality. I don't know if you've come across that. So
of course, it's this Advaita. In Vedanta, it's called Advaita Vedanta.
Yeah, exactly. So like the word individual, if you think about it means in divine duality.
Yeah.
So the fact is we're separate. We're all individual, unique, separate beings, but we're one at the same time.
Yes.
And if you can hold those two perspectives.
Adi Shankaracharya. We're talking about, I'm going to start quoting Hindu mythology. This is coming from Adi Shankaracharya, and which is kind of interesting. I'll tell you, there are 3 schools of thought, guys. Like honestly, so in the Western world, you separate the world, the human, and the God. Right? That's 3 separate entities. So the world exists, the concept of God exists, and people exist. When you come to the Eastern philosophy and you go back into Vedanta, they actually blend all 3 of them into one.
Yeah.
And they say that all of it is part of the divinity as a whole, whether it is God, whether it is you, whether it is the nature and the environment. And I think that's a huge diverse thinking between the East and the Western philosophy. And I think what you're touching upon is that, and taking a cue from that, when I thought about why do people make the mistakes again and again and again, looking at it from an Eastern philosophy perspective, like which Priscilla, you mentioned spirituality, the growth on spirituality. I feel that because most people who don't have a relationship with themselves mess it up with the others. Because when you are not connected with your own existence of who you are, what you are made out of, how you sort of evolve and how you're evolving, no relationship with self means no relationship with others. And I think that's why we hear it, we intellectualize it, but we can't sort of carry it forward because we didn't fix it with us. All of us spoke about everything to do with others right now, vis-a-vis our expectation. Nobody talks about relationship in your own context of existence. What is relationship for your own self before you even look at others? So I just wanted to bring that point across to say maybe that's the root cause of a lot of miseries on relationship.
Absolutely. And like I said, like in relationships, it's often a mirror of yourself,
Yeah.
so like if you haven't done the work on yourself, it's going to reflect back on you anyway. I've seen that happen over and over and over again where like, there's something unresolved and that shows up in your relationship.
Yes.
And when you look at it, it's actually your projection. It's not necessarily the other person. It can often be your projection.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Priscilla, you're smiling away. I don't know what that means.
I just think it's so interesting because if it's all about exactly what you guys are saying, the energy you give out, the self-love you have, if you are full with goodness and content and love that you have for yourself, you can give it back to the world.
Yes.
And then I think it's very important not to have any expectations, because you will always get disappointed if you're going to put the bar differently, because you don't know what the other person is going through at that moment. So you can be very much disaligned, but mean the same thing. And when you just speak and act from deep within, so again, we come back to the authentic self, and you know your own flaws. So you know what you need to look out for, and you need to be attentive to and work on, so you can make it better for the other person. But by giving out what you're full of, you'll end up getting back, because the other person will just receive it and feels then that they're comfortable, that they can then show their true self.
One thing that always used to sort of, sorry,
I was just going to jump in for a second. I think you just hit upon like the secret of a good relationship there. And the way I'd sum it up is a relationship's not about what you can get out of it. It's about what you can put into it. And if you go into a relationship with that attitude, it's always going to be more sustained and more exciting and just a better quality. If you go into a relationship what I can get out of it, it's always going to fall to pieces, because you're both taking things out of the relationship instead of putting it into the relationship.
Yeah,
love it. Good.
And Michael, I would like to add there that even when you're saying put into it, I would say what is the intention with which you're also putting in that effort in the relationship? Is your intention also eventually to get something out of it, or your intention is pure of giving in that relationship? Because fundamentally it could be a long-term or a short-term expectation, right, as well. So I think that's also the intent behind that giving is also very, very important. What I was earlier talking about, and this is a question to all of you guys as well, because this is something I'm questioning out everything that I've grappled with. Self-love. What the hell is this? What the hell is self-love? So many people. I have seen people on Instagram posting pictures. I do it. I'm a culprit of it as well. Me time, self-love. Self-pamper. What is self-love? What does it mean?
Can I jump in, or Michael?
Yes, Priscilla, go for it.
Yeah. So self-love is looking inwards in a very chaotic world. There's so much happening. We are getting so many influences. In Dutch, we say prikkels. So there's so many sensories that get fired off with everything around us. And you kind of sometimes lose track of who you are because you're being influenced by everything. By what it can be just one word that somebody says that day, and it can totally bring you off balance. So sometimes it's good to just sit with you in silence, in your own thoughts, and look inwards of, okay, who am I? Again, what is my purpose here? Am I doing a good job? Do I think I'm doing a good job myself? So this is for me self-love, that you reconnect with your values, with your beliefs, with you wanting to be in the now, and get away from, I have to plan this, I have to do that. And, you know, you're just focused on so many other things than sometimes just like, okay, hold on, where is my feeling? What do I want? And this self-love for me is filling up that cup.
Okay. Interesting. Michael, your thoughts, or Shweta, either of you?
Yeah, I think I completely extend Priscilla's point where you say, have we forgotten ourselves in the process? Who we are, what does love mean to us? Sometimes, we are so busy fulfilling everyone else's expectations. Again, it goes back to expectations, fulfilling everyone else's definition of love. We're always filling their cup so much, but our cup is empty. So I really think that, and one more interesting thing I read about, maintaining a healthy relationship. I understand relationships are all about patience. We're all, as human beings, we are work in progress, but a golden point that I read was, we should not entertain everybody in our lives. We should draw our boundaries clearly. We should respect everybody, of course. We can love everybody. We can be good human beings. But as soon as we notice someone crossing the boundaries that's not acceptable or tolerable, it's important again to go back to our point of communicating. So it all kind of, I think, beautifully interweaves. They're all interconnected. The common words I notice coming out in this conversation are, communication, patience, silence, tolerance, love. It's in the end of the day. I mean, this is.
True.
I think it's all about, yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, I want to come back to a point on that later, because what you just said then, Shweta, is so important. But for me, most of my life, I didn't know what self-love was. Like, I just didn't get it. I thought it was like narcissistic, and I was a lot of like guilt around focusing on myself. And then I went to an event a few years ago, and we did this big meditation, and we literally went back in time, like through our whole life, and we got right to the point at where we were born, right? And like you'll know this, Shweta, because you're a mother, but that moment when you hold your baby in your arms for the first time and you look in its eyes, he got us to do that. And then he said, "You're the baby." So your future self is looking at you as a newborn baby, holding you in your arms, staring and just giving absolute unconditional love to yourself. And your future you is saying, I'm going to look after you. I'm going to make you the best version possible. I'm going to give you everything you need. And I'm going to take care of you. And it was like, whoa. And I was in floods of tears. I was like, oh my God, this is what self-love is. It's not narcissism. It's just saying, I'm going to look after you. Like God or the universe, like gave you this, like this amazing spacesuit, this amazing quantum computer, all these amazing gifts. Like, I'm going to fucking look after that. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's good. And it just clicked. I was like, that's self-love. Like, wow. Like, and you're supposed to do it. It's not being a narcissist. It's being grateful for the fact that you have been given you. You've been given this. Do you know what I mean? good and the bad, all no one's perfect, like, but what you've got is amazing, right?
Mm.
So
Love it.
yeah, that for me was like game changing, yeah.
Amazing.
So that's
Interesting,
helpful.
amazing, Michael. I mean, to be honest, so I've had my share of thinking on this as well, and I sort of agree with all what you guys have mentioned. For me, kind of connect with Michael on this point. I think what you said is so true. For me, it was, if I have to really be self-loving, let's put it this way, which means I have to be able to be self-forgiving as well. I have to be able to be self-aware as well. Must have gratitude for my existence and myself. And I'm not saying that arrogantly, I'm saying that with gratitude. And that goes back to your point, because if you're not that, then how can you ever be a person that can exude love? Because if you are yourself, if your tumbler is half empty, the only thing you'll do is take. But when you forgive yourself, when you are aware of your existence, when you are full of gratitude for your existence in this world, and you start filling yourself, and when you are full of compassion yourself, then you are filling up that empty vessel. And then the only thing that will happen is it'll pour out to others because you're full. And I think for me, taking care of yourself or self love is all about filling that vessel yourself through these actions of gratitude, forgiveness, non-judgmental, non-guilt. People make mistakes, and we all have, but some of us live with it for so long, and that we forget to fill up that empty vessel. And I think nobody else can, except for you. And I feel, and what I try to practice is when I can fill it up myself, then I have the ability, because now I'm overflowing, to share.
Yeah.
But if it is empty, I will take it from everybody. And I become more a taker than a giver. So that's sort of where I am with the whole context of self-love. And one, if we can do consciously. So, consciously forgive. So I sit and say, okay, what are the mistakes I made in my life? Okay, I did these wrong things. I forgive myself, have that conversation, move on. I don't carry that forward. Because that also taught me something, right? And that's an experience for me. I think that is what constitutes self-love for me, which is kind of connected to, Michael, what you said. You look at yourself and say, how can you become the best version of yourself through your own actions and not depend on others to make you the best version of yourself, right?
And
Does that make
the
sense?
airlines agree with you. Yeah, the airlines agree with you, right? You put your oxygen mask on first. Make
Yes,
sure you
before you
breathe
do it,
first,
others. Yeah.
and then you can help everyone else. Because otherwise,
Right.
you're just panicking, and then
Yeah,
you're stealing
you can't
everybody
help
else's
others if you
oxygen.
don't have. Yes,
Exactly.
beautiful, amazing, cool, interesting. Then we talk about, okay, we spoke about self-love. We started with the relationship context. I'm just sort of trying to summarize. We spoke about what is relationship, and each of us spoke about the kind of relationship we have. Then we sort of meandered into self-love. Now I want to talk about something that again has been a question in my mind. Yeah, people talk about love being unconditional. The word unconditional love. What I never understood: can love ever be conditional? You know, I thought the word love should can only exist if it's unconditional. Because if it is conditional, how can it be love? It's an expectation, right?
Exactly.
So let's talk about the whole idea of unconditional love. What does that mean to each of us? And maybe we can talk about examples of that in our lives. Maybe, I don't know if that's something that you guys want to talk about, because that's something I have always grappled with. And then we talk about why only have unconditional love to things that matter to you. Why
I
is it
think
I have to be sorry, just why is it that I have to be unconditionally loving to only my son and daughter or my parents? Why can't I have the same unconditional love for people around me, for nature at large, like you have this love for animals? Why is it so segmented to people? Because is it love then? Or is it actually a condition of expectation which you're calling unconditional love? That's the question. Michael, over to you.
Well, I was just going to say, first of all, I think in the English language we have one word, love, and it's like
Yeah.
Eskimos, with snow, like they have 30 words for snow, right? We have one word, And I think that causes a lot of confusion because when people go into a relationship when you're young, it's not just about love. It's about like finances. It's about looks. It's about all these other things, because our mind is my mind's got a checklist of the ideal lover that we want.
Yes.
That's not love, that's something else. That's liking. That's preferences.
Yeah.
So I think like the word love in the English language is quite limited. I don't think it really expresses what love is, because if I say like I love you guys, like what does that mean? There's a different intention. There's lots of different intentions behind that word, I think.
Interesting. What do you guys? Shweta, Priscilla, what do you guys think? I mean, this is an interesting, line. Unconditional love. We use it very casually around. I love my husband unconditionally or my son. I'm saying, can you exist, or can love exist if it's conditioned? And why? And is it true love if it's only to your family, or is there conditioning there?
I really have never looked at love being conditioned. I find it very difficult to put that in that perspective. So I don't understand how love can be conditioned, because in my perspective, love on all levels is so intense. Even if it's friendship, you're there for each other. You have feelings for each other because you want the other person that you're with to succeed, to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be loved, to be enjoying being in this world.
Yeah.
And that goes on different levels. So as a friendship, you still have that love and that push for one another. That's, again, you want them to be in this beautiful, beautiful space. But when you're with a partner, then that not backfires as in a negative, but it comes back to you. So that intensity of love becomes such a chemical reaction that you just bounce off each other, and that energy ball just becomes bigger and stronger. And for me, that is only possible with unconditional love. And with animals, it's the same. With animals, you can't say it. They want to be with you or not. So if they want to be with you, that energy, again, is so intense and naturally flowing, of being in the now of that moment. So the love, the unconditional love for me, is in the exact moment that we're breathing and living now. That's where you feel that intensity. You want it to last forever, but it's the now, that intensity, and that's what you hold on to and want to experience over and over and over again. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sure.
I can just unpack this a bit more though, because I think this is really interesting, because like we are human beings, right? And human beings, we've got different components. And one component is our heart and our soul, and that is capable of unconditional love, and it wants to do that. But then you've got your mind as well, right? And your mind is always saying to you, stay safe, you're going to get hurt, like don't do this, don't do that, like this is wrong, like you don't like this person,
Fear.
blah, 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 right? So there's always fear, because like the thing about love is love hurts, right? If you love someone, at some point you're going to lose that person. And one of the most painful things that can happen to us is losing something or someone that we love. Like it literally breaks our heart, right?
For sure.
So our brain is on the other hand going, you don't want to get hurt. Like don't fall in love. Like it hurts too much. Don't give love unconditionally. It hurts too much. So we've got like this little dance going on all the time between like souls and our brains. And that's the job of our mind, and we have to respect that. Our mind is there to keep us safe, to keep us in, surviving, basically. Which makes unconditional love incredibly tricky for most people, because most people have been hurt by giving love, whether that's to a parent, to a lover, to a husband, wife. Like they will have suffered, or losing an animal. Like everybody's been hurt when they fall in love, and that makes them have conditions on it, you know?
But just to jump in on that, then you can continue. Sorry. Yes, totally agree. But why would you deprive yourself from feeling that love again just because
Correct.
maybe you get hurt? You
And
live
that's the
today.
battle.
Life is short.
Yeah, if you live from
Try
your
it
soul
again
and your
and again and again.
yeah, and if you live from your soul and your heart, you will do that. And but
And
so
I,
many people get lost in their minds.
that that process, you're scared, you fear you're
Yeah,
going to get hurt and again. And I sometimes you doubt your own capacity. Do you have the capacity to deal with that? Because it probably invoked a whole range of emotions. You probably, like, I don't know, in extreme cases, you shut the doors of your house and you didn't speak to someone for like 10 days just because of how hurt you were. Are you physically and mentally able to go through all that again? So sometimes people are just like, okay, I don't want to ever go through that. I'm just gonna
yeah,
shut the doors.
it's easier said than done. The whole word conditional love, to be honest. But in all the examples, guys, we are talking about, if you really think about it carefully, there is conditioning there, right? In terms of, like, for example, when Janine lost her father earlier this year, and me and her were having this conversation, and like I said, it's easier said than done. So I'm not saying that it's not easy at all. It's very difficult. Dad was suffering, and he was 82, and we had this conversation, and I told Janine, if you think of it from his perspective, he's better off if he transitions. If you think of
yeah,
it from your perspective, you are used to having your dad around. You don't want to
yeah,
let that go. Now, think about it. Is there a context of self-orientation there, right? Because you have one person who you love unconditionally, who is in a physical form, who is suffering. Would you much rather have him ease out and transition as opposed to wanting him to be around you all the time with the pain, right? And go through the suffering, but you can't leave me. And I think that's the trick, or that's the challenge of unconditional love, where you can experience it, Priscilla, to your point, again and again. But like I say, it's easier said than done. But when you have to have the capability to put yourself completely in the other person's shoe when they're going through any sort of high or low in their life, if you love them unconditionally. So, for example, with your partner as an example, my partner might say, look, I want to live this way all my life. I don't want to take care of these things. I want to be who I am. If you love that person unconditionally, can you have that person do exactly that and not have that person change at all? Because if that person changes, that's not the person you loved anyway, because he's changed. Who you met and loved was that person with all those conditionings, right? But can you love those conditionings unconditionally and say you exist and you don't change, regardless of what impact it has on me, whether it's your parents or family? So I think, to me, unconditional love is allowing a person to exist in their own element and evolve in their own element, and you are around that person. You are not consuming that person. It's the consumption that creates the expectation and the conditioning, because you're now feeling, I need this energy from this person. I need this gratitude from this person. I need this kind of emotion, which I call love, from this person. And when that goes missing, you're in pain because you don't have that. So when we start living in that context, then if you look at it in that context, you're universal. What's the difference between the relationship you have with your animals, in your case, or your parents, or a stranger? Really nothing, except for you have different levels of trust with them. You have different levels of other emotions, which you can bundle together and call it love. But there are other emotions that you have: comfort, trust, respect. But love is the same. There's no difference. It's an energy which is only existing when you're giving and not receiving. And it can only exist when you're unconditional, with no conditions attached to it. That's sort of my realization of relationships.
So
And
I
that's
have, go ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
go. No.
No, I
Shweta, go.
question, Rahul. Would you say that caring is also one part of unconditional love? And what I mean by that is where you're thinking about what is best for the other person and what is not, and you don't look at it as what isn't it for me. Like, it's like you're always looking at, okay, what, like, this might sound, if it sounds like a bad example, please stop me, but
No.
as a mother, I'm saying this. A lot of
Mm.
times, son, obviously from the kind of cultures we belong, you're already thinking that, oh, my son is going to be an architect, and he's going to be an engineer, and you think of his success. The question is, should we think about what will look successful in society, or what will be best from a successful point of view, or should we care about his well-being? Caring
Yeah.
about his well-being is what is defined as unconditional love. Caring about what's in his best interest is unconditional love. Am I making any sense? Can you
Yes,
correct me?
you're making total sense.
Okay.
I think let's replace the word caring with compassion. Okay,
Compassion. Okay.
if you are a compassionate person,
Yeah.
fundamentally,
Yeah.
you would be a compassionate mother. You would be a compassionate, human being to others, whether it's you're a wife or a friend or whatever it is. If you're a compassionate person, I think you will be caring enough, and at the same level with everybody. With your son or anybody's son, or let's say if I had a son, let's say, I think we move from compassion to what Priscilla earlier mentioned about triggering from a place of fear. I want my son to fit in, to be successful. I want to make sure that his future is secured. So all those are fear triggers, right? So therefore, an engineer or an architect or whatever, an astronaut or whatever, a doctor, it's coming from your fear space that he won't survive on his own in future. If what happens if I'm not there, how will he fight the world? And
Correct.
therefore a doctor, therefore an engineer. But if you're purely compassionate and caring as a human being, you will tell your son, become the best version of who you are,
Correct.
in any format, whether it's in singing, dancing, being a doctor, because that is what a character, that is what builds character.
Mm. Mm.
Everything else will build a skill, not a character. So when I'm saying about unconditional love, I'm saying allowing that person to be who they should be and who they would want to be
Yeah.
eventually, and
Yeah.
just being there as a scaffold, as
Yeah.
a mount to be around, and
Mm.
let him blossom on his own
Mm.
without
Mm.
conditions. That is
Mm.
what I would call unconditional love. I
Mm.
don't know if
Mm.
that makes sense,
Yes.
but
Yes. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Michael, what do you think? I mean, you've taken this
So
whole
I'm
silence thing too seriously.
no, I'm just contemplating what you're all talking about, because I'm just actually like relating this to like attachments and
Yeah,
detachments as well, because often in relationships we get over attached and we want to,
yeah,
like
yeah,
what you were talking about there, Shweta, is a very sort of like altruistic version of control. So you want to like point your son in the right direction and give him the best hand, and we all do. We all want that for our children,
Yeah.
but ultimately they're their own people, and all we can give them as parents is love and guidance, and they do their own thing. um what I was thinking about as we were talking about this as well was, there are some, if you really want to explore this, like there are ways to do it. So I studied for a few years ago, I studied Tantra, and Tantra's philosophy is really interesting around this. So, like when you have a relationship with someone who studies Tantra, the whole philosophy is unconditional love. And what that means is, if they want to have a sexual partner outside outside of the relationship, then you have to fully support them in that, because you just want the best for them. You want them to have the full experience of life, which goes completely against my programming. I was brought up as a Christian. A Christian is monogamous forever, full 100% commitments, don't even look at other people, in its idealist form. So yeah, like really challenging that conditioning, and I experienced that. So I was in a relationship where we had other partners, and it's really challenging, because you coming from this place of, I want unconditional love, I want this person to do whatever they want,
mm,
but I don't want to lose them, and I don't, and this person is going to be better than me, and all these things are going through your head.
mm,
So it's incredibly challenging, and it really brings you up against all the emotions that we have as humans, like jealousy, fear of losing love. That's a big one. Like, we're all scared of losing love, right? And we're in relation, so we're comparing ourselves to everybody at the same time as well. Like, is this person better than me? Am I better than them? And so it brings up all the parts of us as humans when we do these like social experiments. And for me, I find it very challenging. I was like, okay, this is actually hard. And can I do unconditional love? Like, yeah, I can do it for my children. If my children puke up all over the walls and don't sleep for 2 days, like, I still love them, they're little angels. But if my partner goes and has sex with someone else who I don't necessarily like, that doesn't feel very good, So, so yeah, like, you can really go into these things and find out where your edges are and like what really does trigger you, if you want
It's,
to be that dangerous and risky.
but it's interesting because I can hear all your elements in there. So within a pretty short period of time, I've lost a very healthy horse due to some unfortunate due to an unfortunate situation. So I lost my horse. I lost my marriage. So there was so I lost a horse, marriage, my father, and these three things, and a dog as well. So the dog was old age. So here comes what Rahul was explaining about, okay, I would love to keep him with me, but it's not fair. It's selfish because he's old. His body is giving up. So I've got a lot of peace with this. And you're able to unconditionally love and accept the transition. Then when it came to my father, it was, again, he was 84. He had lived his life to the fullest, an incredible, positive human being who was my hero, who I spoke to on a daily basis, knowing that he was in pain. I actually helped him transition together with my sister. And that was the most painful experience you could ever imagine, because something that you love so deeply, you have to let go. But you have to not be selfish there because he needs to transition. And that was such an interesting emotion and dynamic that it's incredible how strong you actually can be as a human being. So this love was very beautiful. Then my marriage, which fell apart, was with loads of questions and lots of hurt and disappointment and boundaries crossed. But again, the challenge of myself, of, okay, how can I turn that unconditional love instead of into hate, into acceptance and unconditional love, and let that person be who he wants to be without you. So this was another dynamic and interesting challenge and evolution I had to go through. And that's the same with the horse who was suddenly taken from me, which was also the love of my life. It was my first horse, my first black beauty. And that was abruptly taken from me. So many different elements of unconditional love where you get completely challenged of, okay, how can you stand with yourself, with this love, and give to all these elements and give that unconditional love and accept, be content, be forgiving, and be ready to do it all over again. If you know what I mean. And still trust the process and still love.
Yeah. And you know what blows my mind is that we're really not taught any of this stuff. Like, we pick it up from our parents, we pick it up from life, but no one really teaches relationship, right? And for me, going forward, like, this is fundamental in everything. Like, the wars that are going on around the world, like the pain and suffering, it's all down to relationships, right? And I'm just going to bring this back to Dubai, because what I love about Dubai is that we do, the vision is people living in harmony. Like, you see that around, the Dubai, and it's, messages from the Sheikh and everything, is that it's how do we create this community of people who live in harmony together. And I feel like Dubai is like almost a prototype for that in the world, where you've got all these different types of people coming together to try and live in harmony. And one thing that came through really strongly for me about a couple of years ago is that what is unconditional love? Well, unconditional love is it's very easy to love people you like, but it's very hard to love people you don't like. But that's more important, you know.
Mm-hmm. True.
And for me, if we could have a world where we could just love even the people we don't like, that would be a very different world than we've got right now.
Mm. But Michael, first of all, I have this saying that I practice. I don't know who said it. If nobody said it, then I said it. Which is, if you belong to no one, you belong to everyone, right? And let's think for a second. It is because it is the belongingness that actually creates the attachment that you spoke about, and we spoke about attachment earlier. But can you exist in this world where you belong to no one, but you belong to everyone, which means every relationship, including your family, and you're just there as a giver to make them a better version of them, scaffolding them, traveling with them, helping them, but you don't belong to anyone. Yeah. In terms of attachment, I'm talking the belongingness, and I think that's a very, very important state of existence. If we can sort of get there in a lifetime, it's very hard to be there perpetually, because most of our disappointments are stemming from that sense of belongingness and losing that belongingness, right? Um, Detachment, Michael, you spoke about earlier the word detachment. Detachment is not indifference, right? Detachment is being attached, sort of belonging, but not having those expectations, those energies that I want to receive this love from them. I want to have this part of them. Now, if we can survive like that, you see, you're perpetually in the state of happiness and peace, because and meaningfulness, because your love becomes extremely meaningful in this. I'll give you a parallel example. How I know that my conditionings work. Let's talk about the nature for a second, right? We've spoken about people and relationship a lot. Now think about it. It's a beautiful, rainy day, and you feel like, guys, let's meet up for a cappuccino or a coffee and a biscuit. Weather looks amazing. You can sit outdoors and enjoy a cup of tea together, right? So we are super happy with it. The same nature becomes hot and crazy. You start cursing it. You're like, man, what a horrible weather we have, right? The nature never changed. It always existed in the form that it existed. Our conditioning of nature, our love for nature is conditioned that only when you're nice and breezy, we're going to enjoy you. When you become super crazy, whether in terms of heat or rain, I'm going to curse you. Oh man, I can't go to my work because of you. Oh, I can't travel here because of you, because you're crazy today. Look at the conditioning there we have as well. We can't be accepting of anything without condition. I think that's a very important point of our discussion today when we talk about relationship. How much conditioning plays in our minds in everything that we do. And I'm not saying conditioning is bad, but as long as we are aware that it is a conditioning that is making us behave that way, I think that it's easier for us to be more adaptive and open, because we will remind ourselves, hold on, am I thinking like this because of a condition? Maybe I'm not able to see something through. And we have it all the way around. So I think my point on unconditional love is you can only have or experience that when you let go of your conditionings, when you let go of the expectations, when you let go of what you're going to get out of anything in life, and you start belonging to everything in its purest form. That is when you become self-aware and in the present as well, right? You're appreciating the weather, you're appreciating for what it is, you're appreciating the relationships of what it brings to you today, you're appreciating the relationships that you have with the good and the bad, because if you take and change that, you will not like the relationship anymore, because it's not the same relationship that you had. So I feel that you can only be in also self-awareness and in the present when you are letting go of those expectations in life or those belongingness in your life, and be detached but not indifferent. Be detached to be more attached. Take the I, like Michael spoke about the mind, which conditions. The mind is a reflection of your ego, right? So therefore, the ego is a creation of false self. You take the I away from love, you become more pure. The moment you add I to love, it becomes attachment, because the I is the one that's going to start taking. Okay, so
There's a
the
great
existence of
exercise.
I kills it. Sorry.
There's a great exercise that can help you with that as well, because
Okay.
that's not easy, to get to that
Yeah.
state. That takes a lifetime sometimes.
Yeah.
But in a relationship, you will be triggered. So I'm sure like all of you have been triggered in relationships, right? And
Sure.
when you are triggered, that's the expectation going against your conditioning. There's an expectation there, and it's not being met, or it's being,
Yeah.
there's some tension there between you. So you're triggered, and the way you can move through that is to be grateful for the triggering, because whenever you're triggered, that gives you access into yourself. You can decide, well, why am I being triggered here? Like, what rule is going off in my head that's making me feel like this? And that's a brilliant opportunity to learn from yourself. And when you bring that awareness, then you can decide, well, do I want this conditioning or not? And then you can
Yeah.
start to let go of that conditioning, because you're aware of it. Because often we're just not aware of it. Like we're in a relationship, someone says something, we get into a heated debate, someone walks off, they can't handle the triggering. But actually, if you just confront it and you go, okay, well, I'm being triggered. I'm going to tell you I'm being triggered. Like, I think this might be why it is. I'm not sure, but I am being triggered. So I'm just going to tell you that, like, that's what's happening. And then
Yes.
you can self-reflect, and then you can communicate, and you can start to learn more about each other. And that's how, your relationship can actually become a source of like growth and learning instead of conflict. So that's just a little exercise you can do.
Amazing.
And I
Amazing.
also wanted to add to that, Michael, because we spoke about it before, and I think that can be a good addition here. What was amazing that you mentioned was nothing is certain in life. So if you let go of the certainty, you let go of a lot of elements.
Yeah.
True.
Maybe you can touch that one.
Well, we confuse a relationship with a desire for certainty. So like, like I don't want to live on my own. I want to be with someone. Okay, you're with someone. Okay, we want to put it in a marriage. Okay, well that's great, and there's nothing wrong with marriage. It's a commitment. But if you're doing it because you just don't want to lose the other person, because you want to be sure that you have a partner forever, because you need to be certain of that, that's never going to end well. Because you're doing it for the wrong intention and the wrong reason. And there is nothing certain, so you could get married and then you go off each other, so the marriage itself doesn't create a certainty. Like a relationship is a dynamic thing that's going on all the time that you always have to be mindful of and be working towards a better future for both of you. And then we're talking about intimate relationships here. But yeah, humans crave certainty, but the ultimate truth is there is no certainty in anything. Like it's all an illusion. So we should just let go.
Yeah. So let go of that. Yeah. Go.
Yeah.
In relationships, generally, I think this might sound funny, but no one ever carries a sign announcing, what they have to offer us. I think it's very important to like just observe. This is based on my experiences, and maybe you could correct me if I'm looking at this in the wrong way. But I think it's always important to observe people's intentions and actions. Maybe see, are you in alignment with them? Like, are they maybe demonstrating what they say they value? Do their values correspond to your values? I think we learn a lot more from behaviors than promises. A lot of promises are made in relationships, but the reality is when you observe as you go through the relationship, how their behaviors are panning out. I read somewhere that there's very interesting. There's like 4 types of trust in a relationship, and it was beautifully they identified as the 4 different kinds of C's. And the first C was competence. The second C was care. The third C was character. And the fourth C was consistency. So it's very beautiful where it said, you have to ask yourself this question, that what is my genuine intention of getting involved in the relationship? You know, I don't know. I mean, again, you guys can put some light on this. Like, what are your thoughts on this? Is it?
So, can I respond by saying that I have my own formula?
Of course you do.
Classic me. And I think, I don't know if I probably have spoken to you guys about this earlier as well, which is, I think for me, and this is what I practice with Janine and my personal relationship, there are three things in a relationship for me. There's love, commitment, and compatibility. Part of what, Shweta, what you're talking about comes in my definition under compatibility, because you have to see whether those things matter to both of you, in a relationship. I think love is a one-way street. So, you can be loving and giving, and your partner may or may not be. Or your partner and you both can be loving and giving, or maybe your partner is loving and giving and you're not. So I think love is something which I genuinely believe is an independent road, right? So it depends on the individual. Commitment is the same way as well. You can be committed to your partner may or may not be committed to you, or vice versa. There is no way for you to control commitment of another person. It belongs to somebody else. But when you come to compatibility, that's two ways, right? And the only way you can tackle compatibility is with respect. And I think, and acceptance. So if you can look at everything that goes under being compatible and tackle it with respect and acceptance, both, then I think you can make any relationship work. But the moment you don't have the respect for it, so for example, if your partner is a certain way, you sort of respect him or her to be that way. You accept him or her to be that way. And whatever it is, because you signed up for that, both of you signed up to be together with those expectations or those traits that both of you share. So I think the way I look at it is that love, individual choice, commitment, individual choice, compatibility, two-way. No two people are compatible in this world, not possible, because we all have different environments in which we've been brought up. So you can't be compatible, because compatibility is a reflection of your mind and ego that comes from your environment and nature. So two people, unless they've been brought up in the same exact house, the same exact way, their values will be different. So how can they be compatible 100%? Not possible. So you tackle it with respect and acceptance. And that is what brings about trust, that you'll be consistently working in that direction. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's my rule.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'd add some more things to that. I absolutely love everything you said there. It was really great. And what I was thinking about at the same time was like attitude as well. So like for me, the best relationships are when you have a shared attitude that you're both in it for the same reason. You both, excuse me, son. You both you're both gonna hold each other and you're gonna go through the hard bits together in a safe space together, knowing that you're doing it for the best for each other, because relationships can be tough, that you're going to hit those hard bits. And when you do, like, if you can both hold each other, like, with the knowledge that you love each other and you want the best for each other, no matter how challenging this is and how triggering this is, we're going to get through this and it's going to be better for both of us. Even if we have to split up, it's going to be better for both of us. Like, to me, that attitude is very, very important.
Very important.
And then the other thing as well is like having a shared vision. Like the relationships that haven't worked for me is where there's no vision. Like what's the vision for the future, the positive vision for the future. And if you have something, and it's not just about you two, it's about your role in the world. And I know, Rahul, you have that with your relationship, where you have a vision, a combined vision for a better world together. Like that's probably why it's so strong. You're getting energy from the universe to support you in that relationship because you've got that vision.
Correct. Absolutely.
And I want to add one more thing to it, and then I think it's pretty complete.
Yes.
Is freedom. Because we all somehow get put in that box.
Absolutely.
But if we can have the respect, the compassion, the vision, and add freedom to that, that is again the unconditional love, the trust that you are able to let go, it will be so strong.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think that's the missing link, freedom. Because I think true love is nothing but freedom.
Freedom,
And
yeah.
that you're so true about that. Shweta, what do you think? Anything you want to add to this or make sense?
No, I think we all come to with different levels of self-awareness, going back to what you...
Absolutely. No, I agree. So let's, I look at the watch and it says 1 hour, 10 minutes. So let's summarize and conclude this one. I think, how about each of us conclude with one major takeaway we had from the conversation today? And then we call it off. Does that make sense? And then we sort of conclude this. Because I know we can go on for hours. But,
Right.
I think we should stick to an hour of conversation a little easier. Michael, you want to sort of kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just go back to that point that I made before, which is, it's very easy to love people you like, and that includes yourself, or the parts of yourself. It's very easy to love the parts of yourself that you like. It's hard to love the parts of yourself or other people that you don't like, but that's really important, So I think that's sort of a message that I'd like to spread more in the world, for sure.
Amazing. Priscilla?
For me, it's don't ever stop giving love. Whatever the situation, whatever the heartache, always give and have your intention as spreading the love.
Amazing. Beautiful. Shweta?
For me, it's, kill expectations, For me, it's all about try. I know it's easier said than done, but giving is more important than expecting. And also, one other thing I'd like to add is try to see the good and bad in a relationship, and try to graciously choose to ignore the bad, and focus on the good. I think that'll make everybody in the relationship much more happier.
Amazing. And I guess for me, it would be that if you really want to have an authentic, genuine, good relationship, you start with having that with your own self first. And because if you don't have a relationship with yourself, you can't have it with anybody else. And therefore, I think becoming self-aware, self-forgiving, full of compassion, self-loving is very, very important and an important ingredient to having healthy relationship with others. So that would be my sort of message in the podcast, to say, start building that relationship with yourself before you do that with others. So with that, I think we come to an end of our second podcast, guys. Wonderful.
Yay!
A fantastic time, 1 hour. I hope this would really go out and help people. And we will continue doing these hopefully every month. And next time, whenever we are in person, we'll do it physically, and otherwise we'll do it through this platform, right? So with that, should we sign off? All right.
Amazing.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Have a wonderful time, guys. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thanks so much. See you guys. Keep the love going.
All right.
Bye.
All right.